We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180, 1230 KGEO, 1410 KERI, and 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Our guest by phone, Alan Keyes, who will be here in Bakersfield on July 25th at the In God We Trust rally. The phone number to call is 661-325-7601. Alan, I've got a question for you. Doing a little research, and this question I actually had for you years ago. One of your, I guess the man who had the most influence on you in college was Alan Bloom, the author of The Closing of the American Mind. Mm-hmm. What was that like having, one of the mentors of American thought at that time as an instructor? I mean, that would have been fantastic to sit under his tutelage.
Well, I think what I owe to Alan Bloom is a great debt in many respects, especially for teaching me to take seriously the understanding of politics, not just of American politics, but of the political challenge in general, that sees the root of political life as the moral foundations of a society. In other words, the moral character, the moral identity, the moral understanding, the sense of what is right, what is wrong, what is just, what is unjust. That sense, I think, is the determining factor in the cohesion and integrity and strength of a society. A society that respects its moral foundations is going to survive and grow stronger. A society that destroys them is going to grow weak. I think there was probably a little bit of a difference because over the years, in my own experience, reading, thinking, I have also come to the conclusion that truth about that, the truth about what constitutes the moral understanding that is most consistent with human nature and human good, that is overwhelmingly important. And I've also concluded that America's founders did a pretty good job, not a perfect job, but a pretty good job of building a constitutional system that was based on respect for this fact, that it's not only a question that you have a moral understanding, but that moral understanding corresponds to the truth.
Alan, it's really nice to have someone openly say what many are thinking, but as you're probably aware, are afraid to say. But the question I had for you right now is, what are your thoughts on the immigration policy and what's taking place in the legislature today?
That's interesting because I am just working right now on a column that I'll be, or it's a posting that I'll be putting up on my blog, in which I talked about the immigration thing. And the answer to the question, I'll just read this little paragraph I just wrote. Decades of willfully lax law enforcement of U.S. immigration laws allowed a de facto invasion of U.S. territory that is now being exploited by a gang of partisan, ideological, and corporate hacks to impair the geographic and political sovereignty of the American people. With no regard for the preservation of our national identity and cohesiveness, this gangster clique, arrogantly calling themselves such, aims to break the spirit that leads Americans to cherish political and economic independence. And instead, they aim to infuse by importation the more tractable, servile mentality of people accustomed to wage slave peonage and serfdom. So I see the whole immigration business as part of the effort to overthrow the self-government of the American people according to the Constitution. And I think that they mean to turn, and they use all kinds of excuses, but it is, in fact, their own willful neglect of our sovereign borders and the enforcement of our immigration laws that has then led to this de facto invasion of our country, which they have, I think, been encouraging in order to create the very crisis that they're now exploiting to help remove the American people from sovereignty over their own affairs.
Alan, I would love to have you back because I know we're going to run out of time today. We would love to have you back. One question I have for you is a quote, and I totally agree with this quote, but I heard you once say that Jesus Christ would not vote for Obama. I agree with that. What would motivate you to say that? I totally agree with the comment, but
God has told us, and it's there in the Proverbs, that he hates the taking of innocent life. Obama is the high priest of the culture of death. He has been so fanatically committed to the idea that women should have the so-called right to murder their children, their nascent children, in the womb, that he opposed a bill like the Born Alive Infant Protection Act that was aimed at making sure that if by some chance a baby was born alive after an abortionist had tried to kill it, that baby would be properly cared for. And he opposed it. So he wasn't just for abortion. He was so fanatically and is so fanatically committed to the abortion culture that he wants infanticide. He wants killing people. And he even said once that the vote in the Congress, the Senate, that he was most ashamed of was his vote to look into the Terri Schiavo business. He's ashamed of a vote that was aimed at respecting the unalienable right to life. Do you think that Jesus, who came to give life and that more abundantly, is going to be supporting and getting behind somebody who stands square for the culture that rejects God's gift of life and substitutes in place of respect for life the willful worship of what Nancy Pelosi has called the sacred business of abortion? This is crazy. And I think that it's so evident, I don't even know why people have any trouble answering the question, since I think Obama stands for that which is diametrically opposed to the spirit and will that Jesus Christ came into this world to introduce into our hearts.
Well, you know, you're seeing it at the beginning of life. You also are now going to see it under Obamacare at the end of life.
That's right. And I don't think it should surprise people, because at the end of the day, life as it comes from the hand of God, they don't have any respect for that. They have respect for their understanding of life as an idolatrous fabrication of human will and power.
And that's all it is. It's power. Power and money.
Sadly.
What about this coming election in 2014? Where do you think we're going to stand as far as Republican, Democrat, or independents?
Well, I frankly don't know. I think that we have the sentiment in the heart of many people that would want there to be a clear alternative. I think the clear alternative would have to be forthright about what's really needed right now to restore the Constitution. And I think it could be summed up in one word: impeachment. And removal of the whole clique, the justices, the Obama administration officials, Obama himself, the vice president. I think we need a clean sweep. And the only way to get it would be to elect an impeachment majority to the House and the Senate. Not Republican, not Democrat, but people who have basically pledged themselves to get into the Congress in 2015 and make it the primary business of their session to impeach and remove those who have been systematically, openly, flagrantly discarding the Constitution of the United States, trampling on their oaths of office, and seeking to destroy the form of government that we have.
I think that's one reason they may be trying to destroy the Tea Party, because that's part of our salvation, I think.
I think it is. That grassroots initiative the Tea Party represented, that ability of Americans from the ground up to organize themselves and not to do it violently. You know, one thing I loved about Tea Party gatherings is that instead of all the mess and the incipient violence and the trash and litter that all these leftist groupings leave around, Tea Party people are Americans. They're decent. They clean up after themselves, and they have come together not to do violence, but to rouse each other in a decent spirit to use our constitutional system to take our country back to the right path of its greatness. And I think that's still there, and I think it's going to have to be mobilized big time and with no partisan infections if we're to achieve a good result in 2014.
Totally agree. Alan, we have a little over a minute left. What is your blog again? For people that
my blog, you can reach it by going to alankeyes.com. That's easy to remember. ALANKEYES.com. It's called Loyal to Liberty, because I've been obsessed with the need to understand liberty and preserve it for many years. And so my blog is particularly aimed at people who feel that same dedication to respect the God-fearing basis of our liberty and the way we implement it in America.
And speaking of that, Alan will be the keynote speaker in the In God We Trust rally. That will be July 25th here in Bakersfield. To find out more about the event, please call Tina Miller at 661-325-7601. Alan, thank you so much for the time, and we would love to have you back sometime.
Especially after the elections.
Yes.
Well, I'll be glad to come back, and I hope folks will turn out at the rally. I'll look forward to seeing people.
Great. Thank you, Alan. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.